लेसन 171 पार्ट ए प्रैक्टिस टाइम आपके अवेलेबल है, तो प्लीज लास्ट तक बने रहिएगा और वीडियो को स्किप मत कीजिएगा, क्योंकि इसी के थ्रू तो आपको इन्फॉर्मेशन मिलती है। तो स्टूडेंट्स, टुडे इज योर प्रैक्टिस टाइम कंपटीशन माइलस्टोन कंपटीशन आपका रहने वाला है, और आज आपको ग्रुप में डिवाइड किया जाएगा, जो कि आपको ये स्प्रेडशीट दिख रही है, मार्कशीट है, जो कि आपको एक्सेल में क्रिएट करनी है विद योर ग्रुप ऑफ फ्रेंड के साथ। इसके इंस्ट्रक्शन क्या है और आपका माइलस्टोन्स के इंस्ट्रक्शन क्या है, जो कंपटीशन है, वो सारी चीजें मैं आपको बोल के नहीं, वो मैं आपको सुनाऊंगी। तो चलिए लेट्स गेट स्टार्टेड।
Students to thank their buddies who made them achieve this milestone. Ask the students to share their experience and how they motivated each other to be regular. Make this fun and lively conversation by being energetic and giving attention to everyone's talk. Present the world map to each of the pairs that have achieved the third milestone. Ask students to share their feeling of receiving their third rewarded fee. Also ask them if they would like to receive a fourth reward. Inform students that it would require a further commitment at their end. Tell them that today is the beginning of the fourth and final round of Milestone Championship, which will be more exciting and competitive. For this, we would make new pairs and buddies. Tell them that this time, only the top two pairs would receive a reward at the end of the fourth Milestone Championship. The commitment would be the same to ensure that they and their partner are regular. Since top two pairs would receive a reward, it would also be necessary to have a good attendance percentage along with being regular. The top two pairs with the maximum attendance would receive their fourth and final reward. Hence, it would be important to make sure that you and your partner both are regular to achieve a higher attendance percentage. Congratulate students for not giving up and encourage them to do even better in the next round. Note, tell students that their last reward is a special certificate which they would receive on their final day at FE. Make sure that you mention that only the top two pairs would receive the special certificate. Make sure not to tell the students what is special about the certificate they would receive on the last day, as it could kill the excitement. Practice time. Objectives. Students will become comfortable in giving presentations. Students will practice creating a spreadsheet on Excel and communicate the challenges with their peers. Step 1, 20 minutes. English practice time. Write vocabulary words down on strips of paper, then fold them in half and place them in a container. One at a time, students will come to the front of the class and pick 3 to 4 strips of paper out of the bowl. They must then tell a short imaginary story that includes the words they have chosen. Encourage every student to present it for a minimum of 30 to 40 seconds. Words to be written on slips of paper: forest, night, magic book, knife, handkerchief, rain, train, family, park, friend, etc. Step 2, 20 minutes. Instruct the class that they will create a spreadsheet on Excel as given in the SRB. Get started and move around and help students as required. Ask pairs to help one another. The conversation between them should be in English. After every 10 minutes, ask students to move around and look into the work of one other pair. They should talk to them about the challenges they are facing and the progress they have made. At this time, the facilitator should vigilantly move around and keep a note of students who are trying hard and those who are still shy to converse in English. Students who finish early, guide them to help others. Ensure that the conversation is in English. Help students who require more support. After the discussion, allow students to continue for 10 more minutes and repeat the discussion activity thereafter. Do this as many times as the time allows. Following instructions well. Objectives. Students will be able to follow written and verbal instructions accurately and efficiently to complete a task with minimal errors. Step 1 to 10 minutes. Introduce the topic. Following instructions well affects success in your studies, workplace, and life. Following instructions in school enables you to learn effectively, do well on tests, and achieve higher marks grades. In the workplace, understanding and taking instructions is essential for being an effective worker and taking on more workplace responsibilities. Following medical instructions is important for your health, and in emergency situations, instructions can be a matter of life or death. Ask students, what are other contexts, situations where you need to follow instructions? Step 2 to 10 minutes. Following instructions well is much more than carefully reading or listening to verbal instructions. Ask students what are the steps involved when they are trying to follow instructions. Guide them to understand that this is actually a complex process that involves language, mental flexibility, attention to details, listening skills, analysis and expression. Emphasize to students that following instructions well is something that needs to be learned. You can suggest that students write this down in their notebooks to emphasize that this is a learned skill that can be improved over time. Step 3 to 25 minutes. Guide students through Part C, which focuses on 3 aspects of following instructions well. After discussing active listening, complete the Simon Says activity with the students. Ask all students to stand up, and the facilitator also stands at the front of the class. Tell the students that you will tell them to do an action, and they should copy the action, but only when you say, Simon says. If you don't say, Simon says, they should not do the action, even if you are doing it. To start the game, you can say, Simon says, clap your hands, and clap your hands at the same time. The students should copy your action. Then you can say, Simon says, touch your nose, and touch your own nose. The students should copy you. Then you can say, touch your knees, and touch your own knees. The students should not copy your action this time, because you did not say Simon says. You can repeat this game several times with different actions. Students will practice their ability to actively listen to the instructions. Reflect on the game with the students. You can ask the following questions. How did you find the Simon Says game? Was it challenging or easy for you? Did anyone have difficulty following the instructions? What made it challenging? How did you determine whether or not to follow the command when Simon didn't say? Did you notice any strategies that helped you remember to follow only the correct commands? In the Learn a Recipe activity, you can divide students into pairs. One partner will describe how to make his or her favorite dish. The other partner should listen carefully to the steps and write them down in the notebook. If they like, they can try making the recipe at home. Then the students should switch roles. After the activity, ask the students, how do you think this activity relates to the skill of active listening? Would you be able to make the recipe if you did not write down the steps and ingredients? In the origami folding activity, you can ask students if any of them know how to fold something, and teach the rest of the class. If you know how to fold something, you can also teach the class. If you like, you could also find a video on YouTube that teaches you how to fold something, and play it for the students. Everyone will practice following the instructions, asking questions when necessary and checking that they have folded each step correctly. After the activity, you can reflect with the students by asking the following questions. 1. When you were folding your creation, did you need to stop to check and make sure you were folding it correctly? Did you need to ask questions or replay the video? 2. How does the transformation of a simple piece of paper into a more complex structure relate to personal growth or development? What role did concentration and focus play in successfully following the instructions? Step 4 to 15 minutes. Complete Part D with the students by reading and discussing the list of steps for following instructions well. After discussing the list, students can practice applying the steps in a role play. One student will be the manager, and another the employee. In front of the class, the manager will give the employee a list of tasks to complete in the classroom. Some examples are given in the lesson. The employee should follow the steps listed above and complete the tasks. The other students should observe and give the employee feedback if he or she missed a step. Did the employee look at the manager while getting instructions? Did they take notes of the instructions? Did they ask questions to clarify? Did they let the manager know after they finished the tasks? Step 5 to 10 minutes. In Part E, students will check their understanding by applying what they learned to 3 different scenarios. Students can read and discuss each scenario in small groups or pairs, and discuss what should be done differently in each situation. You can check students' understanding by asking, what strategies do you use to minimize distractions and stay focused on the speaker? Step 6 10 minutes. Prepare yourself by taking notes from Student Retention Techniques document. For 5 minutes, counsel irregular students. It could be either an individual or group counseling. For 5 minutes, make phone calls to students who have been absent for more than 2 days. Update the phone log with a follow update for each call. 1. Write down a list of situations where following instructions will help. You can strengthen your ability. Lesson 170b. Following instructions well. For 5 minutes, make phone calls to students who have been absent for more than 2 days. Update the phone log with a follow update for each call. Lesson 170b. Following instructions well. Part A. Your ability to follow instructions will affect your success in studies, workplace, and life. Following instructions in school enables you to learn effectively, do well on tests, and achieve higher marks grades. In the workplace, understanding and taking instructions is essential for being an effective worker and taking on more workplace responsibilities. Following medical instructions is important for your health, and in emergency situations, instructions can be a matter of life or death. 1. Sometimes you will 1. Write down a list of situations where following instructions will help you succeed. Part B. Following instructions well is much more than carefully reading or listening to verbal instructions. 2. What are some of the steps involved when you are trying to follow instructions? Write them down in your notebook. Based on the above discussion, remember that following instructions well is something that you need to learn. Part C. You can strengthen your ability to understand and follow instructions. In this lesson, we will discuss 3 aspects of this ability. Active listening. In other lessons, we have learned the skill of active listening. Active listening is different from just hearing. Activity. Simon Says. Your facilitator will lead the class in a game of Simon Says. As you saw from the activity, when you actively listen, you better understand what you need to do. It may help to pretend that there will be an exam after the conversation. You can visualize the steps that are being described, repeat them in your head, or visualize yourself doing the tasks. Remembering and recording. Sometimes you will receive written instructions, but often instructions will be given verbally. Whenever possible, you should take notes. What differentiates successful people is taking good written notes. It shows that you are prepared, organized, and want to do the job correctly. Activity. Learn a recipe. Divide into pairs. Your partner will describe how to make his or her favorite dish. You should listen carefully to the steps and write them down in your notebook. If you like, you can try making the recipe at home. Then switch roles. Checking your understanding. To make sure you understand the instructions, you can repeat them back to the speaker. You can say, "I'd like to make sure I am understanding the instructions correctly. I will do X, and then Y, and finally Z." Don't be afraid to ask questions if you did not understand something. Make sure to ask detailed questions about what you need to do before you start. If you start the task and questions arise, it is always better to ask someone for clarification rather than completing the task incorrectly. When you finish, check your notes of the instructions, or the written instructions, to make sure you did not miss anything. Activity. Origami folding. Your facilitator will lead the class in an origami folding activity. This will give you a chance to practice clarifying instructions and checking your work. Part D. Here is a list of steps you can use to help you follow instructions well. 1. Look at the person who is talking. 2. Actively listen. Try to listen intently, not just hear. You can pretend that there is going to be a quiz after the conversation. Visualize what is being said, repeat it in your head, or visualize yourself getting the task done. 3. Take notes. Instead of trying to remember everything, write it down. 4. If appropriate, you can repeat the instructions back to the speaker, to make sure you understood them fully. 5. Show that you understand. Make sure you wait until the person is done talking before you do what is asked. It is usually best to answer, but sometimes nodding your head will be enough to show the person that you understand. 6. Ask questions. If you are even slightly unsure of what you are being asked to do, don't be afraid to question. Make sure the other person allows you the chance to find out all the needed details to move forward. 7. Before starting the task, make a checklist. Whenever there is a job that requires multiple steps, try organizing a to-do list. Check things off as you go to make sure you don't miss anything. 8. Then when you're done, be sure to review your work. 9. Check back with the person to let him or her know you have finished. This increases the chances that you will get credit for doing a job well. It also means that somebody else won't have time to mess it up before you check back. Read and discuss the above list with your classmates. You can also copy the steps in your notebook. Activity. Role play. In front of the class, 2 students role play being the manager and employee. The manager should give the employee instructions to do around the classroom for example, move 3 chairs to the front of the room, clean the whiteboard, jump 5 times, and then collect all the books. The employee should follow the steps on the above list. The rest of the class can make sure the employee is following the steps and provide feedback and encouragement. Part E. Below are 3 scenarios. With a partner, read each scenario and analyze it. What should be done differently in each scenario? Scenario 1. Sunita is nervous about an upcoming examination and this occupies her mind. As a result, when the teacher gives verbal instructions for an upcoming assignment, Sunita cannot hold all the instructions in her mind. For this reason, Sunita is not able to refer to the instructions later when completing the task. What should Sunita do differently in this situation to better follow instructions? Scenario 2. Rahul reads the instructions for an assignment and then immediately begins to write the assignment, without planning out his work. As a result, he does not receive adequate marks on the assignment. What should Rahul do differently in this situation to better follow instructions? Parvati wrote down instructions for an assignment, but after completing the assignment, she did not review the instructions to ensure she followed them correctly before turning it in. What should Parvati do in this situation to better follow instructions?